Good evening. Thank you for joining me at the Metaphysical Journey. For this reading, I wanted to focus on an area that I've never really touched on before. I know I've done weekly readings and different things like that, but on this one, I was really thinking strongly about the solstice and the equinox, but I really wanted to kind of dive into the period in between. What happens between the solstice and then the fall equinox? And the question that I posed was, what is something that we could work on during this time period using the energy that's there? What would be something great to focus on? And so that is the intent and focus of this reading. Now, we know that in our life, on our spiritual journey, we go through the natural life cycles of growth, harvest, death, and rebirth. So with that in mind, and also thinking about the summer solstice of what it represents, it's a time when the sun is at its brightest, it's the longest days, there's the most light. It's also a time that in the natural cycle, people are planting seeds. It's a time of renewal and abundance. And just as the leaves open up to the sun, our hearts also open up to the source that illuminates what's within us. So from that period going to the fall equinox, what happens? Well, the fall equinox is the time of harvest of what we've planted. It's also a time for gratitude of our growth and expansion. So with that time period in mind, I pulled some cards. Now, setting the stage for this reading, the first card I pulled, I saw it and thought, but actually it's a great thing. It means a lot. And it's the death card that in Tarot, it's the death card. And that in this reading represents its transformation. Something ends so something new can begin. So to begin something new, we have to plant new seeds for a future harvest. So I wanted to pull a clarifier for that, and I pulled an oracle card. And the card that I pulled is to answer the question, what do we need to be planting and growing during this period of time? So if death brought the end of something, something new has to begin. What are we supposed to be beginning? What seeds can we be planting? And the card is forever in my light. And this lets me know that what we can be planting and growing has to do with our thought processes. It's a calm mind, the feeling of being safe and sound, and knowing that we are always in the light of creation. We work toward not worrying as much, and maybe we set the intent to grow a calm mind. Now, why would this be important during this time? Think about it. Think about your own thoughts and the conversations you've had with other people. Right now, there's a lot of unrest. There's a lot of uncertainty. People have a feeling like something is looming or something's changing. There's just so much uncertainty, and it does create a lot of worry. I know for me personally, I worry about things all the time because it's like, what is going on? I don't quite understand how I'm feeling or what I'm feeling. Are they my feelings? Are they someone else's? I don't know. There's just a lot of uncertainty. So what we can be working toward, and it's going to be a hard thing to do. I'm not going to be able to pull a card and boom, it happens. This is a process that we will continue to work on through this growth cycle and probably many more to come. But it's a great time to begin planting the seeds toward that. So how do we approach that? I pulled a tarot card, and it's the Knight of Wands. Now, wands represent passion, creativity, physical energy, also employment and building towards something. So we can approach this with the Knight of Wand energy. We approach this new process or this new thing that we're wanting to create with passion and creativity. Also physical energy. Plant focused energy to create the harvest that you want. So we go out with intent. If you wanted to grow carrots, you would plant carrot seeds. You wouldn't plant something else, or you wouldn't just grab seeds and throw them in the ground and hope for the best. And so often in life, that's exactly what we do. We don't have a clear intent in mind, and so we have to accept whatever we get. And we're never happy with that. Sometimes it's great, but sometimes it's not. I remember when I was in college, times were hard financially for me. My parents paid for everything, but I was responsible for my own food. So I shopped at a local IGA, and on Tuesday nights, they had singles night. And you got some really great deals. That's where you could get 12 packages of ramen noodles for like $1. But what I really liked, what they had this one section of shelves and they had cans without labels on them. And they were really cheap because you didn't know what you were going to get. Sometimes you would get, green beans. Other times you would get cherry pie filling. I learned pretty quickly to differentiate between what might be tuna and what might be cat food. So there was no label. I had no idea what the intent of the can was, and I just took a risk. In our lives, when we're planting something for a harvest, we can't afford to take risks. We really have to think about it and go into it with a very clear intent. And the Knight of Wands, with that passion and creativity, indicates that that's how we should approach this. We do it with passion. We put some spiritual elbow grease to it, and we focus very strongly on what we do want to grow. I've commented before that we've all heard, well, you're gonna reap what you sow. I say let's reverse that. Let's sow what we want to reap, and this is a time to begin that process. Allow these new things that we do and do it with creativity, as I've said 3 times already now, but do it with creativity and let that offset some of the worries. So if we're doing new projects or something that where our passion lies, it's easy during those moments. Think about it. When you do your hobby or your passion, time just stops. And the next thing you know, it's been 3 or 4 hours. You're like, wow, where did the time go? And that's what you might think about. But also remember that during that time, you weren't worried about things. Your mind was in another place. You were happy. And that's the way to approach this. So I wanted to pull a second card for that, kind of I'm not going to call it a clarifier, but I just wanted a kind of a validation card to make sure I was on the right track. And that's the Pendragon Sword Oracle card. And it is balanced energy. And it says, push yourself to really set some time aside from the old worries, the old way of thinking, and begin something new and creative. Kind of change your thoughts on that. So balance the energy. If we're always worried, we need to kind of balance that out. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is not a quick and easy process. This is a lifelong process of changing the patterns of how we think. For me personally, as I've mentioned, it is a challenge. It really is, because if I'm always focused on what's going to happen and the negative stuff, my mind gets trapped in that rut. And also, as I've mentioned before in a previous reading, our brain doesn't know the difference between reality and make-believe. So if I'm constantly worried and stressed out about something, and usually my worries, they never happen. It's just I'm thinking of worst case scenario, and my brain is not knowing the difference, and it's releasing these chemicals in my body to prepare me for fight or flight or whatever else emotion I'm preparing it for. And it's just I'm wearing myself out. It's good to take a step back from that and take a break. Now, it is a hard process. And what could be something that might be a barrier to our planting the seeds that we want and setting the worries aside? And that is the 8 of Cups. And cups represent feelings, emotions, relationships, love, and connection. And maybe the problem is that we're having a hard time letting go of the worries. We're just so accustomed to them. It's very easy to say, I've given them all to spirit. And that lasts for about 3 minutes. And then I'm like, well, you're probably busy. I'll just take those back. Or I give them to spirit and I don't truly let them go. I continue to worry about them. So I take them back all over again and it never goes away. Maybe you can't see any other way that it could be resolved, but this is about planting new things. And that new thing may be faith. Putting some faith out there to say, okay, I've worried about this forever. It's not happened yet. So maybe it's not going to happen. And I'm just going to let the universe take care of it and force myself as often as I can to just give it up in faith and kind of let it go and see what happens. So feed that faith onto what you plant, and that will fertilize it in the right way and help it grow. And know that faith and what you go through, that's all divinely ordered. The other side is handling things so that you don't necessarily have to worry about it. Also, whatever you're worried about, your ancestors are worried about it. And they're on the other side working on it too, trying to resolve it. Because ultimately, the other side wants you to be happy. And you can't be happy if you're constantly stressed and you're in your mind and you're scared and you're just focused on things. It could be on your health, on your children, your family, your job, other relationships, your finances. That's a huge one for many, many people. And it's hard to move forward when we're constantly stuck in that mindset. And that is a hard thing to step away from. So we look for the moments in this where we can do it as often as possible for as long as we can. And over time, we can grow those periods of time into longer stretches to where maybe in an 8-hour day or 8-hour time period, we've only worried for 6 of those. That's 2 free hours. That's a start, but it is a place to start. Now, on this one, I also pulled an oracle card, and that is synchrotron, and it means infinite possibility. Now, this card really sheds some light on this because in our thoughts and worries, we're focused on one area only. And this card suggests that maybe we need to allow ourselves to think outside the box. And the box is our mental constraints, what we say. We think about everything of like, this is what I want, this is how I want it, this is how it's going to happen, this is the time frame. And then we worry that all those things are going to happen. And do they happen that way? Not always, but does it usually work out better? Very often. So think outside the box, because with spirit, with the universe, whatever term you choose to use, it's your path, you call it what you want. In that, with spirit, universe, whichever, the possibilities are infinite. We can't even conceive what all's possible out there, but they know that. So our worry is contained to what ifs and our own mental constraint. We're always thinking cause and effect or cause and consequence. Our thoughts are what we plant and continue to water as they grow. So if we plant good seeds, good thoughts, and water those, that's what will grow. If we plant worry and fear, that will continue to flourish. So you truly can grow whatever your heart desires if you plant the right seeds, fertilize them with positive thoughts as often as possible, and try to worry as little as possible for as long a time period as you can possibly take without going back into worry mode. I wanted to build in an option to assist in how to deal with the worry, the mental anguish, the fear that we all face on this path. And that is the 6 of Wands. And the card depicts a warrior coming home to victory and cheers after a very hard battle. How many battles have you been out to and come back? I'm sure a lot. And you didn't always come back to cheers. Maybe you did, but how marvelous it would be to return to cheering crowds. Now, this is your life. This is your path. This is your battle. You do need to come home to cheering crowds. And sometimes the only cheerleader that can actually be there is you. So let's take the approach of the 6 of Wands, of that energy, to look at where we are, where we're headed, and what we want to achieve in the end. The battle, where we fought the battle, we got the death card, so that's over in one aspect. So now we're moving forward. So take this time to remember your past successes and be your own cheerleader. In reading after reading, I talk about how you should always honor yourself, what you've achieved. Don't forget those things. Don't just kind of pass them off like, oh, that was just luck. It wasn't luck. It was divinely ordered. You had to go through those things. And maybe all the successes are for this moment in time for you to remember those. Don't ever underestimate those, because it's those high moments, those cheerleading crowds, those coming back from battle victorious, that will carry you as you move forward. You've done it before, you'll do it again. So don't worry as much about what the future seeds might bring. Focus on the harvest that you want to produce and see that in your mind. Picture that. Think of that daily. And regardless of what storms come your way between now and the harvest, whichever harvest it is, this year, next year, or for the rest of your life, every harvest you're building toward, remember those things, the future, as you want to see it, because that's what your projected harvest is. Focus on that future. Think of that daily. Never let that go. There is a card I pulled to also validate this one, and that is an oracle card, and it's choice. And that is many truths. You always have the option to decide what you want to do. You have free will. And sometimes you have to take a leap of faith to believe. Now, those leaps of faith, I will be honest, those are hard. Those are very hard, because you're leaping into the unknown. And the only point of reference we have for the unknown is the past that's known. And depending on how we choose to look at the past, that could be good or bad. And that's where your successes of where you've achieved in the past, you really have to step forward and think of, if you have to dig to the past to look at something, think of those and not the bad moments. And we all have bad moments. But in the concept of many truths, ask yourself, what if? What if this works? What if this isn't as bad as I think it will be? What if I plant this and it actually grows? What if these are really carrot seeds and I get carrots at the end, and in my mind, I'm picturing drinking carrot juice? That's a simple way to look at it, but it's kind of the same concept. You have to see in your mind what you want to harvest. It's better to try and possibly fail than never try at all. For this reading, I wanted to stick with always pulling as I have done on some of them in the past, I like to pull a Major Arcana superhero energy card, and that to help us embody the energy of that as we move forward during this period between summer solstice and fall equinox. And the card that I pulled is the Hanged Man. Now, this one threw me just a bit. I'm like, well, what does that mean exactly? Well, it actually has a very great energy for this. So if you've been hanging around for a long time, getting the same harvest year after year, perhaps it's time for a new perspective. Now, if you look at the Hanged Man, he's hanging upside down, and he's kind of just kind of casual there. He's not stressed. He's just kind of hanging out. And, there's a lot to be said for that. Life isn't always the way we see it or how others describe it to us. Sometimes we have to be turned upside down before we can clearly see what's right in front of us, or that we can see things from a different viewpoint. It's upside down. It's like, I never looked at it that way. So be your own person during this. And the Hangman represents that as well. Be your own person. You just be you. Be comfortable with who you are. Just be happy to hang out and do your own thing. You be you. This harvest in your life, these are your seeds that you plant. It's your life and your harvest. So you have full ownership of that. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter what everybody else says that you should do. This is your life. And during this period of time, you can plant anything and grow anything, because the other side's in full support. The sun is there. You have everything you need. So give yourself some time to pause right now, hang out for a bit, pause, and reflect on what you really want out of your life. Again, this is your harvest. What do you want to plant? The oracle card I pulled for this, and this is the final card. This is for the kind of the validation, and it's dragon magic. and it stands for good fortune. Now, I know there's a lot of people that work with dragon energy, and that's what this card is about. And it really pairs nicely with the energy of the Hanged Man. And good things come to those that wait. So hanging out, weighing your options, and doing things in the right timing will get you what you desire, as long as you're focused and you're intent on that. That this card is about dragon consciousness and the good fortune and rebalancing it brings to your life situations. Dragon energy provides reason, strength, and self-assurance to help achieve what you need to do. It's the perfect energy to bring into the Hanged Man energy. So while you're hanging out, taking a pause, thinking about everything, bring that energy from the dragon in and really boost and amplify that. So during this period between summer solstice and fall equinox, it's like we've been given fresh soil. It's been tilled, it's worked. All we have to do now is plant the seeds. And in a few months, we'll have our harvest. What do you want to plant? What do you want your harvest to look like? You are the farmer of your life, and truly what you harvest is what you choose it to be. So what are you going to plant? It's something to think about. Thank you all so much for sticking with me on this, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful evening.